Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Watches and Style channel. This is Young Brando. Today, we are going to talk about 3 Lange watches that you can buy to start your collection. Lange und Söhne is a German watchmaker that was revived in the 90s. They are the unofficial mothership of German watchmaking and perhaps the most important representative of their watchmaking tradition as it emerges from the state of Saxony and specifically from the small traditional watchmaking town of Glashütte. They, perhaps for that specific reason, precisely because they don't belong to the group of usual suspects from Switzerland, Lange hold an inevitable charm for the collector. And because of their particular connection to recent horological history and some other connoisseur brands, I think they also have an added appeal. And we'll talk about that for this video. I'm going to start with perhaps what is most predictable, and you already know the slant of this channel if you have watched a couple of videos. So this will be mostly going back in time and finding some of the greatest deals. That doesn't necessarily mean that you can't buy any of these models, at least some version of them new from an Lange und Söhne boutique if you would like to. But the 3 pieces, the 3 reference points, so to speak, that I will present in this video will also serve as a cure to fight some of the more undesirable practices at those boutiques that have rightly alienated some collectors. I'm going to start with Lange 1. This is actually a photo from that fateful night on October 24th, 1994, when Lange und Söhne revealed their foundational collection, the 4 pieces of the original collection, and Lange 1 is on the left, with Günther Blümlein leaning on it. Günther Blümlein was a very influential executive, especially in the late 80s and 90s, quite important, quite influential for IWC Schaffhausen, for jaeger-lecoultre, and the revival of the Reverso as their icon, and also in his efforts to resurrect Lange from its ashes, which he did in conjunction with Walter Lange, a member of the family, and that's the gentleman in the middle, and Hartmut Knote, who is to his left and our right. So the third gentleman, who is standing right between the Saxonia and the Richard Lange Tourbillon pour le mérite. And of course, the other model, the Art Deco design, is the Arcade, which doesn't really exist as part of the Lange catalog as we know it today. The Lange one was in so many ways ahead of the curve when it came out. Today, perhaps it's not easy to appreciate how groundbreaking it was with its design, with its asymmetric dial layout. We live in an age where we even have hype watches like the Nautilus Moonphase, the reference 5712, that have their own iconic approaches to this kind of layout. So looking back into mid 90s, we have to appreciate how revolutionary this really was in projecting a unique aesthetic. And that's one thing to keep in mind when it comes to Lange, the strong aesthetic and the meticulous finishing of the watch inside and out are just some of the features, some of the aspects of Lange timepiece that attracts that specific kind of enthusiast. The big date indicator, the outsized date display is also very distinctive about this watch and about Lange more broadly. One should say that it was a JLC invention, which was bequeathed onto this brand precisely through that Günther Blümlein connection. But of course, Lange was so much more successful in weaving the story of the big date, of the outsized date indicator, to the story of their own ancestors and their peculiar aesthetic that it kind of stuck. And the first generation, in conjunction to this, in parallel to this, has movements that are based on jaeger-lecoultre, based on JLC gear trains. And that to me is actually one of the most attractive and most charming aspects of the references that start with 101 dot xxx, so to speak. That first generation of Lange 1 that have this, to me, incredibly attractive patina that has accrued over the years due to the particular way in which the German silver 3/4 plate ages. And it also features these islands on that 3/4 plate that are also so many marks of the work around solutions that the watchmakers came up with while transforming that JLC gear train into the movement of these exquisite watches. The classic Lange one is 38.5 millimeters in diameter, and it's just a smidgen shy of 10 millimeters in thickness, 9.8 millimeters to be specific. As I mentioned, for me, there's so much that makes this first generation, that makes reference 101 so much more appealing. But of course, the model has received a revision after 2015, and those watches, those with a reference 191 dot xxx, they feature a new movement and you get uh, perhaps the most significant improvement in the form of the jumping dates. But when it comes to the original, I think that particular connection to JLC, to the brand's own history, to its 90s revival, a Lange one in its original form seems to be obligatory to me. I should also mention that 2024 marks the 30th anniversary for this revival, 30th anniversary of Lange One as well. And what better way would be, what better way could be there than to get a Lange One in yellow gold with a champagne dial, which was, as I was told, Walter Lange's personal choice as well. There are lots of great deals to be found in all shades of gold, right around 25,000 to 27,500 US dollars on the secondary markets. And I think that is a great deal when you compare it to the current retail pricing, which hovers right around $45,000. Of course, the price point for a Lange one on the secondary market has shifted, and you might even say shifted dramatically in the last couple of years. But I think vis-a-vis the sky rocketing retail pricing practices of many major brands, this is one of those watches that still represents, to me, one of the most attractive deals on the secondary markets. Again, 25 to 27,500 dollars in USD for different shades of, for various shades of gold, and for around 35K, you might even get a platinum example if that strikes your fancy. For my money, again, the yellow gold for a Lange one seems like a perfect choice. This is an example in pink gold, and here's an example with white gold and a luminous white gold case and a luminous dial. And here is my pick of the litter, which is the yellow gold. Next up, we have a piece that still exists and exists in the same way in the A. Söhne catalog, and for that reason might actually serve as a great first purchase from a boutique should you actually pursue such a relationship. I'm talking about the Saxonia Thin Gold Flux, reference 205086. This was a piece that they introduced in 2018 in what was then an enlarged, oversized case for the Saxonia Thin line, which usually averages around 37 millimeters. This is a piece in a 39 millimeter white gold case. The watch is delightfully thin, very elegantly sleek, only 6.2 millimeters in thickness. and it has this special gold flux dial, which is likened in its appearance, in its aesthetic, to the semi-precious stone, the aventurine, but this is actually a particular technique, a time-honored technique that Lange employs in making these dials, where tiny copper oxide crystals are embedded in the material of the watch face, and these uh, gold flux uh, pieces, these gold-like flakes, actually shine through beautifully depending on the angle and lighting, to give the impression of a star-studded night sky. And as you can see, the deal is expressly designed to heighten that particular experience. There's no seconds hand, not in the form of center sweep seconds or in the form of a subsidiary dial, and the indices that serve as the hour markers are very elegant, thin and elongated, multifaceted markers. Everything is laid out to maximize your experience, your appreciation of that gold flux dial. I should add that there are two limited editions in this series that come even in a larger case. There is a pink gold 50-piece limited run that comes in a 40 millimeter pink gold case that matches it with the blue gold flux style. There is also another limited edition, if I'm not mistaken, in a 40 millimeter, again, a larger white gold case, and a black gold flux dial. But this is precisely my choice. As I mentioned, it's a great entry level watch. It's a great entry point into the Lange catalog, whether you're shopping on the secondary market or if you are beginning a more long-standing relationship with a boutique. The watch has all the bells and whistles, all the distinctive and distinguished characteristics of a Lange timepiece, as you can see in this beautiful movement. The three-quarter plate fashioned out of German silver, which is one of the best visual and horological markers of the Saxonian watchmaking tradition. Those glashütte ribbings, the stripes that are wider than their Genevan counterparts, give even this relatively flat piece a delightful dimensionality. And of course, you have that freehand engraved balance cock and a swan neck regulator as well, to say nothing of thermally blued screws and the rubies that are set in gold chaton. The movement itself is only 2.9 millimeters thin or thick, depending on where you're looking at it. And it has 72 hours of power reserve, which is more or less consistent across the entire range of Lange's offerings, and which has also since become kind of an industry standard. This piece trades for around $22,000 in the American currency, and I believe sorry, my mistake. I wanted to say this piece at the time of its first release in 2018 retailed at around $22,000. You can find it on the secondary market today for around 25,000 US dollars. And I believe in time, the retail pricing has also risen all the way up to that point, if not above it. So this is a great deal, whether you are shopping on the secondary market or whether you are thinking of this piece as your very first Lange und Söhne watch from their boutique. Incidentally, this is the kind of piece that you can often find in stock at Lange und Söhne boutiques. So there might even be an opportunity where you walk in, try it on for size, and if you're happy with it, you can actually purchase this watch on the same day and walk out with it on the wrist. And what a beautiful way to start your intimate connection with this watchmaker. Last but not least, I want to talk about what is perhaps my favorite, the datograph, specifically reference 403035 in platinum. This is the watch that was released in 1999, and it is the watch that is going to celebrate its 25th anniversary in 2024 later this year. When it was introduced just 1 year short of the new millennium, it's basically caused a paradigm shift in haute horlogerie, in those high echelons of watchmaking. As a point of comparison, just a year before this, Patek Philippe had released reference 5070, which has been a slow burner, and that was still a hand-wound chronograph built on the base of the Lemania CH27, whereas the L951 movement that powers the datograph flyback, I think, basically takes the baton from that time-honored Lemania movement base into the next century. I also like the fact, hey, this is no secret. I'm a nerd. That even in its name, this model is very German. It's kind of puts into work that common practice of the German language in making compound words. This one puts together the word for date, datum, and chronograph, and makes its datograph, hand-wound chronograph with flyback functionality and the big date display. It's in a way before the Odysseus even came into the picture. This was Lange's sports watch with tachometer scale on the perimeter of the dial, with its distinctive alpha hands that are inlaid with luminous material, and as a kind of Easter egg, also with that sort of bull's head chronograph aesthetic, where the start-stop pusher for the chronograph pairs up at 2 o'clock, pairs up with the quick corrector for the date display at 10 o'clock. The reverse panda look, where you have the black dial as the backdrop to these silvered opaline white chronograph registers, is, I think, very beautiful. Of course, that is subjective, but the balance that is achieved between the layout of those three Roman numerals at 2 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and 10, on the one hand, which form a triangle, and between the two chronograph registers and the outsized date display at 12 o'clock, which form another triangle. That balance is actually quite objective, and it is one of those aspects of Lange's design that have stood the test of time. I would also like to draw your attention to their use of script and branding, where the signature of the brand beautifully completes the circle on the perimeter of the dial. Again, situated as it is between roughly 11 o'clock and 1 o'clock. Of course, the movement itself is a showstopper. It has been likened in terms of its multidimensionality and the panoply of colors and finishes. It has been likened to an urban landscape by many, including myself on this channel, when I told you Lange's story and history and design aesthetic. You can find a link to that video below in the description box. And you can see again the interplay between the German silver that is used for the bridges and the stainless steel as it has been used for the chronograph works. And you can add to that not only the various dimensions and levels of the movements, not only the variety of finishing techniques that you find on it, but also the playful tension between the different colors as well, also represented by the heat-blued screws, as well as the rubies that are set in gold chaton. Another reason that makes me like the datograph in its original iteration is its compact proportions, 39 millimeters in diameter and 12.8 millimeters in thickness. I don't necessarily appreciate how it grew with the datograph up and down. And I also feel that the proportions are not quite there anymore. Nevertheless, this is the model that you can find today in the lineup with the reference 405035. But again, I think as a piece of horological history, it would be, I think, a very distinct pleasure to own the early iteration of this movement, which was, as it happens, one of the first um, in-house chronograph movements that were developed from scratch in the post-quartz era, even though JLC's caliber 829, another masterpiece from a sister brand of Lange, which we will discuss later, precedes it by a few years. As I mentioned, the current model as it exists in the catalog has the reference number 405035, and it retails in excess, for an amount in excess of 120,000 US dollars. But for a platinum example of the 403035, you can find some great deals on the secondary market for around 70,000 to 75,000 US dollars. You will have more or less the same. You would be looking more or less at the same price points if you would rather go for a pink gold example with an argenté, a silver dial. The reference number for that is 403032. When it comes to the version with the black dial, there is a little bit of a premium. This is reference 403031. Of course, there is a slight sprinkling of horological stardust on this particular iteration. It is called the du photographe because this was a timepiece that was seen and photographed on the wrist of none other than Philippe Dufort, the esteemed independent watchmaker, so many times. However, I think the reason that this piece accrues a premium, and at times a significant premium, is due to its limited number, due to the fact that it was made for a very limited production period between 2003 and 2005, whereas the platinum model, of course, was introduced in 1999 and stayed in production until late in 2011 to 2012, which is when the datograph up and down was introduced. So because of what it represents for Lange, and it is a model that will be celebrating its 25th anniversary this year, my choice would be the platinum example, reference 403035. But as I mentioned, the pink gold examples with the argenté, with the silvered dial, are also very attractive. And I'm not only speaking on this point aesthetically. These are the three Lange watches that I would suggest for you if you are just starting your collection. The Datograph Flyback in platinum, 403035. The Saxonia Thin Gold Flux, reference 205086. And an example of their icon, Lange 1 or Lange 1, one of those pieces that's of whose the reference number starts with the three numbers 101. Thank you again for everything. Thank you for your presence and support. If you have liked this video, please hit the like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. I'm here with watch-related content on a daily basis. And this is probably the only watch channel that works completely at the behest and for the benefit of its audience and nothing else, purely dedicated to the passion for and knowledge of wristwatches. So come back for the next one. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, wear and enjoy your watches. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.